What's up, everybody? On today's show, our buddy Chris Marler joins the show. What did we learn in SEC Week 1? Is the SEC overrated? Is that a thing? And we're going to preview SEC Week 2, the slate headlined by Texas at Alabama. Locked on SEC starts right now.
You are Locked On SEC, your daily podcast on the Southeastern Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And what is happening, everybody? Welcome into Locked On SEC. It's great to have you guys along. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use our code LOCKEDONCollege. That'll get you $20 off your first purchase. I'm Chris Gordy. Thanks for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. And the guy wearing a Masters hat joining us now, our buddy Chris Marler from the College Football Uncensored Podcast. Marler,
Saturday Football
are you?
Uncensored. Okay, good start for me. Glad I interrupted you. Yeah, I'm good, man. I'm good. I was just saying it's the Saturday Football Uncensored Podcast now. We rebranded, and I should have just let it slide. But I didn't, just like I'm not going to let slide what happened on Sunday night. And we're going to talk about it.
Yeah, we're going to get into it. I kind of wanted to start here, just kind of ask you, what did we learn in SEC Week 1? What were your overall takeaways?
So the quarterback play is like better than I think we thought it was going to be. I think there's question marks all over the field. There's some slow starts. Devin Leary, I think, was a guy that I thought was going to be a top 3 quarterback in the league. He had a really bad first weekend for the most part, or just kind of very inconsistent. Takeaways right off the bat, Bama may be better than people thought. This is just week 1, right? Jalen Milroe, though, being able to throw the football, God, you never have a picture that doesn't make me laugh. It looks like that picture Big Game Boomer posted of him throwing a football, which is not great. So there was a slow start in Athens with UGA. I don't think the truth is always somewhere in the middle, right? Like I don't think it's anything that's going to be that massive of a they're not going to fall off the face of the earth, right? Like even with Mike Bobo and them kind of struggling early. What I was impressed by, maybe the most out of like some of the teams that we didn't necessarily talk about early, was Tennessee's front 7. And how good they look getting after the quarterback and against the run. We talked about Joe Milton all offseason. I thought that defensive front 7 was really good. And then I tell you what, A&M, man, like Bobby Petrino, like I understand it's game 1, but let's not like sugarcoat it. That's a team that averaged, I think, 23 points per game last year. Like they were awful on offense, and they struggled a ton. Nice, again, great picture. but they had like that's an offense that struggled a ton with teams that really weren't good. I mean, that was like a 17-0 at the half against like Sam Houston State last year to start the year.
Yeah.
To see them come out and be on fire early, and those receivers, I thought that was really, really impressive. Ole Miss and Jackson Dart kind of, the comments are like the pub has been all about Quinshad Judkins all offseason. Good to see Jackson Dart get off to a good start. I thought for the most part,
this kid from Louisiana Tech comes in and with 4 touchdowns is incredible.
Yeah, he was awesome, and it was cool to see. Like listen, it's Mercer, but Mercer's like a ranked FCS opponent at least. So even if it's FCS, like they're not as bad as everyone thinks. Maybe, I don't know, but they put up 73 points. I thought it was good to see. And then, like you said, like in kind of the tease at the beginning, is the SEC overrated? There was some they fell on their face on the national stage, and that's not something we're necessarily used to seeing the SEC do. 2 of those 3 games that they lose, that they played, SEC teams played only 4 teams played a Power 5 opponent. They went 1-3, and they weren't favored in 2 of those 3 losses by any means, but it wasn't like they were massive underdogs, and they all kind of got embarrassed. So I thought it was a good on the whole, and I think it'll be fine as the season goes on. But that some of the bigger marquee games did not look good.
Yeah, and here's what I'll say for the 3 teams that lost: Florida, South Carolina, and LSU. Those weren't bad losses in that, like, you didn't lose to somebody that, we went, oh my God, you have no business losing to them. Like, right. Florida was an underdog to Utah. Utah's a pretty damn good team. Now, granted, we could get into the whole Cameron Rising didn't play, but that 3rd-string quarterback, 4th-string quarterback, whatever, those guys look pretty good too. So, like, I don't know, just eye test. Utah looked pretty damn good.
Yeah.
North Carolina, I mean, my biggest concern for South Carolina all offseason, I said, was O-line, 9 sacks. I mean, I didn't think they were that bad, but no surprise there. And turns out FSU might be pretty damn good. They beat LSU. So, yes, those three teams lose. Three SEC teams now in week one, but it's not like they lost to Appalachian State, looking at you, A&M, a year ago. Like, those were three really good teams that got W.
No, I completely agree with that. And I think there's also it's like the easy thing to do is pile on the SEC because it's a conference that, the fans love to beat their chests on it. And anytime you have an SEC team that loses on a stage like that, you see it all the time in bowl season, the SEC chant that's mocking them is going to come out in full force. But Florida State is legit. They're a legit national title contender with weapons everywhere. North Carolina, I hate to say this, but Drake May, I didn't realize he was that good.
Yeah.
I knew he was good. I didn't realize he was that good. And then the other part is our buddy Gene Chizik, just Undertaker meme, rising from the ashes in a defense that was awful last year, coming in and they had 9 sacks. And I love what you said about the South Carolina thing with the OL too, is I remember saying this before last season. The biggest difference for Spencer Rattler was going to be when he was at Oklahoma going into last season. He played on a team that had 11 offensive linemen that were ranked 4 stars or better at the position, right? 11 total offensive linemen that were 4-star or higher recruits at Oklahoma. When he got to South Carolina, there was 1. And that is not something that I think should be taken lightly because the offensive line play was awful. North Carolina had 9 sacks. They had 17 total last year. They got more than half that in game 1.
It's crazy. And here's the thing, Marler, those 3 teams that all took losses, they're my 3 biggest concerns with them coming in. With LSU, it was their defensive backs.
Yep.
It didn't look great. With South Carolina's the O-line. Did not look great. With Florida, their weakness, my opinion, was Graham Mertz, and he looked like crap. So, it's like those 3 weaknesses all got exposed. So now I turn the page and look at the SEC teams that all had cupcakes week 1.
Mm-hmm.
Will those concern? So like Alabama, my concern was quarterback. Jalen Miller looked great against Middle Tennessee. But you know what I mean? Like as they step up in competition, will those concerns we had in the offseason start to, I don't want to say be exposed, but we start to go, oh, duh, like those were concerns coming into the season.
I thought Graham Mertz didn't look that bad at all. I didn't. Like you could say whatever you want, because we all dogged him, and there was times where he didn't look that great. He had a lot of drops. He had no run game. At all. And he was going up against a team that had just won back-to-back Pac-12 championships. Like Utah's built like an SEC team from the inside out. Like they're a good football team. The Bama stuff, I think, is somebody that obviously has ties there and is hopes they win every game they play. The quarterback situation was awesome. It was great to see. I think everyone, that was the thing we heard all offseason. What I think as a fan should excite you most if you're looking at Alabama is 2 things. One, I think they were 10 of 13 on third down. They were 77% conversion on third down. Now maybe you don't want to be in 13 different third down situations against Middle Tennessee State, but they were 10 of 13 for 77%, which is the 3rd highest single game percentage they've ever had in the last 10 years and higher than any game in the Bill O'Brien era. And the other thing was something that plagued them, especially on the road last year, was penalties. They had 2 penalties for 19 yards, the fewest amount of penalties they've had in their last 50 total games. So that kind of stuff, the coaching and execution stuff that we've kind of seen fall off a little bit at Bama the last couple of years, I felt like was back.
Yeah, the other takeaway of week 1, and you kind of hinted at it, was slow starts, right? We saw Georgia, Georgia's up 17-0 to have people what's wrong with Georgia? Tennessee was slow.
Yeah.
Mississippi State, they were close to Southeastern for a while. They finally, woke up. Kentucky kept giving Ball State opportunities. That was weird. So yeah, it was slow starts. Vandy struggles with Alabama A&M. What are we doing, Vanderbilt? I thought we were back. So, it was kind of this weird, I know it was cupcake week across the SEC, but just kind of some slow starts, people working out kinks.
Yeah, and a lot of new across the country, a lot of new coordinators. You saw it with the Clemson last night. You saw it with Ohio State, some of these national powers that we just always assume that that what we think in the offseason is what we're going to see on the field. We're just constantly, I don't know if it's human nature or what, we're looking for confirmation bias of what we think is going to happen, and then we're shocked when it doesn't. like we weren't Nostradamus or whatever, right? I think the thing with Georgia especially, I think they're going to be fine. It's odd that they struggled with UT Martin because it's UT Martin, right? At the same time, it was kind of funny to watch because we heard from that fan base all offseason, they're not going to miss a beat. Carson Beck's better than Stetson. He's been in the program for 4 years or 3 years. Going into this year will be 4. And Bobo was on staff last year. They weren't going to miss a beat. Well, there's a reason why you wanted Bobo gone less than a decade ago. There's a reason why he wasn't at South Carolina still, or Auburn, or even Colorado State. So there's going to be some growing pains across all teams in the SEC. But I think, for the most part, like, it's week 1, and that's what you expect. Like, the teams we see in week 1, you don't want to be firing on all cylinders and executing, because, like, you want to be doing that in November and getting better as a team.
Yeah, and the tough part for Georgia will be, with that schedule being as weak as it is, what's the motivation? We to get up to, you're playing nobody. Like, it's hard to get up for weak opponents week in and week out, but we shall see. All right, one more before we turn the page on what we learned in week 1. Look, LSU, I thought, looked pretty good in the first half.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the numbers, they dominated, but they also had 2 big missed opportunities in the red zone where they came away with 0 points. It was a world where it felt like that could come back to bite them. And in the second half, it completely flipped. Florida State dominated much of that second half and started to run away with it. But this is just me. I feel like if they played that game again tomorrow, LSU puts up a much better fight. What did you see from LSU?
Maybe they put up a better fight. I mean, they got dominated, man. Like I understand the first half.
The stats say different. You're saying just the scoreboard.
No,
but if they're equal across the board in rushing, like, here's the difference in the tail.
8 yards rushing in the second half.
Here's the difference in the tail, though, Marler, of the storylines. LSU was 3 for 10 on third downs. Florida State was like 9 of 14. LSU 0 for 3 on fourth downs. Florida State. So, like, all of LSU's big moments, they failed to capture the moment. Like, third down, 3rd and 6 at midfield, and it's a tied game. Jaden Daniels hits Kyron Lacey in the hands. He drops the pass.
Right.
You punt, touchdown going the other way. There was just those moments where that's not indicative of LSU being bad. They just didn't capitalize. You know what I mean?
They're not bad. They're not bad by any means. But, like, think about the other way too, man. Because this is kind of how the game went last year with LSU Florida State, where it's like you look at the end and it's close, and like, oh, they should have won this game. How many drops did Florida State have? LSU only had 3 drops all night.
But here's the key. Florida State's came on like 1st and 2nd downs, and they could correct. LSU's happened on like almost every 3rd down, and it was like, you're punting. Like, you drop a ball on 1st down, you live to fight another day. The offense keeps going. You drop it on 3rd down, you're punting. Again, I'm not defending LSU. I'm just saying, like, literally, they picked the worst moments of this game to suck. Right before the 3rd quarter, it's a 1-score game. They're driving. Brian Thomas wide open down the field. Big bomb. He just drops it. The next play, the quarter flips over, start of the 4th.
Yeah.
A hitch route to Malik Neighbors. He slips and falls. The ball's already coming out. Boom, it's an interception. Touchdown going the other way. It's game over. I'm just saying, like, they literally picked the worst moments to suck. I think if they kick that thing off tomorrow, LSU, look, don't fumble on a kickoff, like on a punt return, which they did all last year. Like, little stupid mistakes that it cost them. And by the way, I was there in the stadium.
Yeah.
That was about a 70-30 Florida State.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
Like, that was a home game. It got loud in that second half.
Well, but here's the thing too, is like all the things you're saying, and this is why I'm not trying to be negative. LSU can still play for a national championship, and they're still a good team. But, like, those are all the things that championship teams don't do. And we heard all offseason about LSU that, like, this team is going to compete for championships. They're ready. I was like pretty. I guess, like, if you're bull and bear, is it bear the one where you're like, I wasn't sold on it. Well, I don't know stock market stuff. But like I wasn't sold on it at all. And like they have shown in the past, they have not had the ability to stack seasons. And like, I get what you're saying. Like, but you bring up third downs. They only had 1 third down conversion in the second half. Even if you flip the other side of the ball, they gave up 5 straight scoring drives in the second half. Like, they couldn't stop the bleeding at all. And if you really, I mean, like sure, they could have been up 28-7 theoretically in the first half of this game, but you don't convert on 4th because you don't have a running back that can go get you yards. And you look at the run game, take away Jaden Daniels and 1 35-yard rush. You had 11 rushes for 14 total yards with 3 other running backs.
It was
and the defense couldn't stop anybody. So, like, and they got aided from. They didn't have a single penalty in the first half. Florida State had like 3 15-yard penalties. Like that.
And that's why I say it should have been 28-14 at the half. And if it's that, I think the second half plays out different.
Mm-hmm.
But and again, I'm not trying to come across as I'm making an excuse for LSU. They played terribly. They deserve to lose. I just think we're burying LSU too much, where it's like that still is a good team. Florida State may run the table and be one of the best teams in the country. So again, like we need to keep it in perspective. But I saw people saying Brian Kelly's not cut out for this job.
That's
like,
crazy.
Come on, man.
Well,
Like, he beat Nick Saban in year one. Like, let's stop acting like he's done nothing there, you know?
Right. And I think it's one of those things too, where it's like, you kind of have, this is the perfect example of like, people say like two things can be true at the same time. Like 2, 3, 4 things can be true at the same time here. Because like LSU played a horrible game. They still have everything in front of them. They can play great. But FSU, you cannot take away how good that team was. And that's a veteran team. I brought it up last week on here. 18 of the 22 starters are redshirt juniors or older. It's 4 years in a program or in 4 years in college. Like, those are grown-ass men, man. Like, those guys, they executed well in the second half when they had to, and they put it on them. And, like, you cannot, like, I think it's much more of Florida State giving them their flowers and how great they did versus, like, oh, LSU's terrible. Like, I hate when we do that.
Yeah. All right, more with Chris Marler in just a sec. First, I want to remind you guys this episode is brought to you by our friends over at LinkedIn Jobs. Look, these days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager. For your small business, you want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you got to go check out LinkedIn Jobs. They're going to help you find the right people for your team faster and for free. You just go to their website, you add your job posting, you add the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile. That's going to spread the word that you're hiring. They got simple tools like screening questions, make it easy for you to focus on the candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you want to interview and hire. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs, helping you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Go post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Go post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right, continue on our conversation with our buddy Chris Marler. Real quick, want to remind you guys, college football season is here, and you need to be checking out our Locked On College Football Kickoff Live every Friday. We go live 11 a.m. to 1 Eastern on every Locked On College YouTube channel, previewing all the games of the weekend. Go check that out wherever you get your podcast. You don't want to miss it. All right, Marler, let's get into turning the page and looking ahead to some of the games this weekend in the SEC. And look, it's still cupcake week for a lot of teams around the conference, but some games of interest, and I want to start with this one. It is a 10 a.m. Central, 11 a.m. Eastern game on the ACC network, which I'm not even sure I have. I got to go check it out. It's 2-0 Vanderbilt, 2-0 against 1-0 Wake Forest. Wake is a 10.5-point favorite in this one. Can Vandy hang?
A ton. They lost a ton. I think Vandy can hang. Like, now, listen, you got to have a better effort than you put up against Hawaii and obviously Alabama A&M, but that 10.5 is kind of juicy. I like that. I mean, Wake, what were the numbers to get in their first game? I know they put up like a decent amount of points, but it wasn't like they blew the doors off that team like for 60 straight minutes. And again, you're breaking in a lot of new pieces. Here's the thing I'll say about Vandy. We're not that far removed from games where they've gone to like Notre Dame and kept it within one score there or less than 10 points. Like, I think that maybe this is just the bias kicking in with the SEC, but Vandy is a team that is built like trying to have an identity that's a little bit tougher than we give them credit for, because that's what Clark Lee's trying to instill there. I would take Vandy plus 10.5.
There's this weird incestuous thing happening around the SEC where they're like passing off the cupcakes from a week ago. Kentucky beats up on Ball State week 1. Now, Georgia, it's your turn. You get Ball State. So
yeah.
We'll skip through some of those because there's not even lines on some of those. Although there is one on that one. It's Georgia minus 42 against Ball State. When you get into the 40s, man, that's when I start leaning Ball State plus the points.
I'm not going to touch it because I mean, Georgia was a 50-point favorite this weekend and looked not great in the first half and won by 41. There's no, if you're betting on anything that's in the 40s, I think that's, where's the joy in that? It's like where's the joy in that? Because you're not pulling in like that. That just sucks. Like you're talking about like white knuckled grip edge of your seat trying to cover a spread in the third and fourth quarters with like fourth string freshmen in the game and like hoping nothing goes wrong. Yeah,
like Muse, the Georgia walk on. Like it's just there's so many of those kind of stories where it's like I don't even want to deal with that. Other ones like Grambling is at LSU. That's a get right game for LSU. We expect them to.
Well, you never know.
Well, hey, if they play like they did a week ago, Kentucky gets Eastern Washington. Again, no line on that one. Kudos to Mark Stoops, though. That schedule is like cupcake, then at Vandy to start SEC play. Like, kudos to Kentucky.
I kept saying this in the offseason. Like that's one of the reasons I'm sold on Vandy is like they've improved at a lot of positions over last year. They get Cohen back. But if you look at that schedule, they've got a K on their helmet instead of a G. It's just a different consonant. Like, it's just, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
That's anyway.
All right, a few more of the cupcakes, just mentioning them to get them out of the way. Austin Peay, they go to Tennessee. There's no line on that one. McNeese goes to Florida. There's no line on that one. They'll get right. Furman goes to South Carolina. Pretty sure South Carolina's not going to give up 9 sacks in that one.
His son plays for Furman.
Well, we'll see. We'll see what happens there. All right, Kent State is at Arkansas. I'm only bringing this one up because Kent State is a 38-point underdog. Arkansas looked good against Western Carolina, but Kent State's that school that gave Georgia some problems a year ago.
But Kent State's head coach, which I just learned this after the game was over, so it's not like I'm like trying to drop a bunch of knowledge on you because I didn't know any of it. But Kent State's head coach that was the one that orchestrating that last year, he is now the OC at Colorado. So I see what you're saying as well. But I probably wouldn't touch that. I mean, 38, like, because here's the thing too. There's so many question marks about some of those teams. Like, are they going to be? I mean, Pittman was really good against the spread going into last season. He was 16-6 before this year, or before last year. 38 points. I don't know if they cover that because your main thing is getting KJ Jefferson and Rocket Sanders out of the game as early as possible.
Right. And look, Rocket didn't have a lot of yards last week either. It was kind of funny. All the hype of him and Quinshawn, they both looked okay, had a couple touchdowns, but it wasn't like either had a 100-yard day or anything like that. Middle Tennessee is at Missouri. Again, Middle Tennessee, a team that we saw a week ago against an SEC foe, but Missouri only 20.5-point favorites. We heard Eli say earlier this week that they're sticking with Brady Cook. He's the guy. Still don't know if Brady Cook's any good as an SEC quarterback, but that one's an interesting one because, Missouri, the 20.5, like that's coverable for middle Tennessee.
Yeah, it's also coverable for Missouri, though. Like, the thing with Brady Cook is, now granted, whoever they played in week 1, there were times and the defense looked fantastic. There were times when the offense kind of sputtered, and you're like, anytime it's directional and a state, like if you have a direction on the school is sandwiched in between the direction and state at the end of it, that's a problem. So, like, when you talk about what they did, they should have been better, I think, on offense. But, like, he's good at, like, being efficient at times with the offense. We saw it last year against Arkansas. He was really good. He's really good with his legs. But, like, pushing the ball downfield, he just does not do. And I don't even know if that's what their offense is trying to do because you have Luther Burden, which you see a lot of his stuff, I feel like it's either, like, screens or behind the line of scrimmage type stuff and like trying to get the ball in his hands so he can create something, but not something where it's like, hey, let's go put this guy on a fly route or go route and just see what he can do. I think that the ceiling is you're putting a ceiling over your season either way if you have Horn come in, who looked not great, the freshman. So yeah, you got to run with Cook, but I think Missouri will cover him. That defense is good.
Let's get into a few more here before we get into some of the bigger ones this week. Arizona at Mississippi State. That's an intriguing one because, Mississippi State went there a year ago. Obviously, Mike Leach, who was the head coach at the time, had familiarity with the Pac-12, but now it's Zach Arnett and Arizona. They beat up on Northern Arizona last week, so we didn't find out a lot about them, but Mississippi State, a 9-point home favorite over Arizona. 9 points. Where are you leaning?
I wouldn't touch this game at all. Like it could. I told this to somebody earlier. This is like the best inner city JV county championship imaginable. Like, it's two evenly matched teams, I guess, but it's also like, I'm not betting on this and I'm not going to take it seriously, to be honest. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't like it. It's just, I don't know. Like, there's talent on both sides and it'll be fun. You're going to see some explosive plays, but it's like, again, it's like, it's hard to sell me on like Mississippi State's going to blow out this team for one. Arizona was terrible last year. Terrible. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. There's no part of this game does anything for me at all. Like, I don't even, it's like Harry Potter movies. Like, maybe it's for some people, but it's not for me.
All right. Hang tight there, Marler. We're going to hit on the 4 biggest games in the conference coming up
and Harry Potter.
Yeah, we'll hit on all that in just a sec. But first, I want to remind you guys this episode is presented to you by our friends over at the Gametime app. Look, buying tickets to your favorite events should not be stressful. Gametime is the fast and easiest way for you to buy tickets for all your sports, music, comedy, and theater near you. They got killer deals on last-minute tickets. If you're one of those people that likes to hang around in the tailgate spot to the last minute, the Gametime app is going to be your best friend because they have their best price guarantee. You can stop stressing over the tickets and start getting hyped for all the fun you're going to have. It's the fastest growing ticketing app in the country for a reason. You can get images of your seat before you buy. That's the best part. So you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. Is there a big poll in my way? Gametime's going to let you know what your seat looks like. You can buy tickets in a matter of seconds, 2 taps, and you're all set. Tickets are sent directly to your phone, so you never have to dig through your email. Snag the tickets without the stress with Gametime. Go download the Gametime app today, create an account, and use our code LOCKEDONCollege. That's going to get you $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. And jumping back into it with our buddy Chris Marler. And Marler, we got 4 pretty good games in the SEC this weekend. First, let's start with an afternoon affair. It is Ole Miss, number 20 Ole Miss at number 24 Tulane. We got 2 ranked teams in this one.
Yeah.
And Ole Miss, look, they put up 70 on Mercer. It is what it is. But Ole Miss with a nice dominant win over South Alabama in week 1. It was the battle of the home of Mardi Gras. I don't know if you heard. New Orleans won. Mobile, sorry, New Orleans owns it now. But Ole Miss just a 7.5 point favorite. Michael Pratt, quarterback of Tulane, pretty good. Like, this could be a shootout.
Real quick on the Mardi Gras helmet thing. Can we just tone it down a notch with all of the stickers we're putting on here? Like, South Alabama's stick, like their helmet last week looked like the back of like a Subaru Outback. Like, it was just like, I get it. I think I compared it to like, it was like a Nalgene bottle from like a Young Life leader. Like, it was just, there's so many stickers for no reason at all on this damn helmet. I love this line. I think the line was like -6 for Ole Miss. I would jump all over Ole Miss, especially early. You talk about like what Tulane did last year against USC. It's a huge win, but you gave up a ton of points, and you're going up against a offense that also is able to put up a ton of points, and especially early in games. Like we saw this last year, the kind of the blueprint for what Kiffin does, especially in these early non-con games, is they went to Tech last year, and you get like a little bit of a taste of at least being on the road against that's a Power 5 team. This is not, but they're probably still better in Tech. I love the way he's built that schedule, where it's like you're dipping your toe in the deep end, right, of being challenged. So I still think Ole Miss wins. The 6 points feels like a disservice to Kiffin. I would be shocked if it's that close.
See, I just think playing at Ullman Stadium, it's a small stadium, but those Tulane fans, they know how to drink just like the Rebel fans do at the Grove. I mean, it's not exactly the Grove, but I think they're going to bring it. I think they're going to be loud, and I just wonder if they can slow down the run game at all for Ole Miss, force Jackson Dart.
Yeah.
Does he resort back to old Jackson Dart with interceptions? So I don't know. I've been intrigued by this game for weeks. I'm not going to call for the Tulane upset, but would not shock me if they find themselves in a game late in the fourth quarter. All right. The next one, it is the afternoon ABC game. Huge game for Bobby Petrino and Jimbo Fisher. Number 23 A&M going at Miami. They're only 4.5 point road favorites, Marler. A&M looked great in week 1, but
that's dropped.
Man, 4.5.
I tell you what, my favorite part about this is going to be the battle of the 12th man. And when I say the battle of the 12th man, I mean like the 12th man at A&M, and then like the literal 12th man to walk into that stadium for Miami and watch this game. This is like lock of the week, man. A&M money line, lock of the week.
Wow.
Like A&M. Listen, I'm a big believer in A&M because of the dudes they have on that team. I'm not a big believer in Miami. They looked better, but maybe it's just the fact that you don't tell me when the picture's coming, so it's just like blistered up there in my face. No, I think that they're gonna go on the road, and this is a team that I think has a chip on their shoulder too, which is always dangerous for an SEC team. They're favored, right? Like, which is being a road favorite. There's always a lot to be said for being a home dog. I still think A&M is the much better team. I think they're better coached, which is probably not saying that much. Like Cristobal in big games, like what's he won?
Yeah, and the other, like, I don't want to go as far as to say it's must win for A&M, but imagine if they lose
Yeah.
this early. Like, we're bringing back Jimbo buyout talk. We're talking, was the Petrino hire a mistake? Like,
Oh,
all
yeah.
that's coming if they lose this. So you're right. I mean, I almost start to think this point total, yeah, A&M money line all the way feels like the way to go. How about the late night one? This is 9:30 Central, 10:30 Eastern. You're on the East Coast, so this one sucks. Auburn at Cal. Again, hey, the Hugh Freeze offense looked pretty good. Peyton Thorne took him a little while to get going, threw a touchdown to Jay Fair. But how about red zone Robbie? Not one, not two, 3 touchdowns for Robbie Asher. I've been saying all offseason he's going to play a role, and he did.
Yeah, no, it was. I mean, it was good to see that kid. There's not a player maybe in the conference that, like, he didn't win the starting job, and he probably didn't deserve to, right? Like, I don't think it was like anything against him. He just didn't play well enough to win it. But man, that kid got you through the whole season last year and went through he took all the lumps, right? Like that. And so hats off to this kid for sticking through it or sticking to it. And kind of trusting in whatever process they've got going on down there that he's going to play. And then when he gets his chance, making the most of it. I thought that was really impressive. Sleepy, not just because it's so late, but sleepy game. Have you ever been to Cal Stadium?
No.
Buddy, you want to talk about just one of the most lackluster experiences you'll ever have in your life. Like, it is nestled away in this like weirdest campus ever, because it's just like normal streets. You're up here in Berkeley. And I remember we went there a couple of years ago, and it's cool on the outside. The outside, they've done all this renovations, and it looks really, really nice. And then you walk in, and it's Cal, so football doesn't matter. So anybody can just walk in. And it's like across the bay from the Golden Gate Bridge. They're not going to fill that stadium up unless it's full of Auburn fans. But that's a late kick. You got like the running back that Cal has is better than people think. The offense is a little bit better than people think. They came on a little bit late last year at times. You got to think it's Auburn, right? Like you got to think they're going to cover this. This is yet another game. It's like, I think, less than a touchdown spread on the road for an SEC team. But a huge opportunity for Hugh Freeze, which Auburn has a better roster than them. But what scares me is that run defense, which struggled at times against UMass. That run defense against this running back, group over here at Cal, I don't like that matchup.
Yeah, like we said, Auburn a 6.5 point road favorite, and Jaden Ott was the guy, 188 yards last week against, it was North Texas, who's not any good, but again, that's what Auburn is going to be going up against. So good early test for Hugh Freeze and company. All right, let's get to the moment of truth, the game of the week, not just in the SEC, but in the entire country. It's number 11 Texas and Steve Sarkisian heading into Bryant-Denny Stadium with their red strobe lights and their Dixieland delight. It is number 3 Alabama. You will be there. The Tide, 7-point home favorites. How are we feeling?
So a couple weeks back and all offseason, I was very big on Texas plus 10 points, to be honest. Or Texas to cover 10 points. That's
last year's graphic, by the way, if you're looking on
that our old coworker, Danny DeVito, made that graphic.
Really?
That's a fun fact. His name is Danny DeVito, and he is not him. But anyway, no, I think so. Like, I said this all offseason last year, that game was going to be very, very close, and no one listened, and it was going to be I thought it was going to be a one-score game. I get that Saban has a tremendous record against assistants, right? But kind of peel that back a little bit. Some of these games over the past few years against assistants have been a lot closer than, it's not just him blowing people out like he's done in the past, right? You had the loss to Georgia, obviously. You played very close last year against Ole Miss. You played very close against Texas A&M even last year at home, and obviously lost them the year before. Sark is very familiar with them. They looked great last year, and the Texas defense kept Bama in check last year, right? Does Quinn Ewers stay healthy? It's kind of like, a tradition unlike any other, a Texas quarterback going down against Alabama, apparently. You hope everyone stays healthy, but Texas just has so many dudes, and I'm just not buying into the fact that last week against Rice is what this team is going to be, because I think that Rice was like an appetizer you don't even want, just bring on the ribeye. Like, they've been preparing for this game probably all offseason. And listen, I think Bama is a very good football team, but they're going to see some stuff on Saturday that they're not going to see the rest of the year. Like, they're not going to see it against Ole Miss. They're not going to see it against, even if they play Georgia in the SEC championship game or LSU or anything like that. they're going to throw some stuff at Alabama that and wrinkles with Sark's offense that I'm sure he's got in these back pages of that playbook that no one has seen. And I don't know how that secondary reacts to it. And I don't know. Here's the thing for me. I fully expect in the first quarter when Sark's on script, they are going to score first. Texas is going to get the ball. They're going to be up 7-0. I feel like you're going to look at the end of the first quarter and it's going to have a feel kind of like the Tennessee game last year where it's like, oh, shit, they're down. Sorry, excuse my language. They're down 14-3 or they're down like 10 points early on, and now they got to climb out of this hole. And I think the defense might be good enough to stop the bleeding later, and they're not going to give up scores on every drive. But do they have the offense to score with them throughout the entire game? That I don't know.
Yeah, and that's the difference, I think, is there's no Bryce Young this time around. Like, and let's say Jalen Milroe could be good, but like first mess up, first turnover, fumble or interception, that could be what cost them the game. And so,
well, remember last year he had 3 in that game where he had like fumbles and looked not great against A&M, and it was like one of those things where it's like he made the first one, and then it kind of became like, you clinch up a little bit and you don't know like what's coming next. I think they're both 2 really good teams. I just think Texas wins that game. I would take the money line.
On the flip side, though, this could be the arrival moment for Milroe. We saw him look good against Middle Tennessee. This could be he plays like he did last week. We're going, oh my God! Not only is he Alabama's quarterback through and through, he's now a Heisman contender with a huge win over a top 11 ranked Texas team. So again, this thing could go either way. The good news for Bama is even if they lose, everything they want to play for is still ahead of them. The margin for error is gone, much like LSU. Right. But like you beat LSU later down the road, you beat A&M, you beat Ole Miss, like you'll be in the driver's seat for the SEC West and all that kind of stuff. So still everything to play, but you just don't want to lose this early season. So you're going Texas officially?
I am, yeah.
All right. I'll take Bama. They're at home.
And, I love the way you said it. Just so much disdain in your voice.
That's how they do. They just win. It's what they do there. He is Chris Marler from the Saturday Football Uncensored Podcast. Let everybody know where they can find you.
Yeah, I mean, so no, because it's been a tough week on social media already. But so it's Saturday Football Uncensored Podcast. We have new episodes every Wednesday night, Thursday morning. Basically, that is one episode, and then we have a live episode every Sunday night at 8 p.m. So check that out. It's all over on every Saturday Down South platform. And then Vern Funquist on Twitter and Instagram. So
yeah, if you want terrible takes on college football, that is the place to find it. He is
okay. First off, that's so rude to even say. Listen. I told you what was going to happen with that LSU Florida State game. You didn't want to listen.
I'm joking. He's a great follow. Give him a follow at Vern Funquist. No E in there. Here's Chris Marler. We'll do it again next week. All right.
Sounds good, brother.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for this edition of Locked On SEC. Thank you guys for making us your first listen every day. Shout out to our everydayers. Come back tomorrow. We'll be deep diving a little bit more into SEC Week 2. Join us tomorrow.